Today I'm going to share some nutrient management in hydroponic systems. So let's start. I will turn off the video. Turn off the camera. Yeah, okay. Okay. So today, I will mention about the nutrient solution making and also include some examples about the nutrient enhancement in spinach DWC system, and also nutrient deficiency example is lettuce and basil in DWC system. And also another example about if we reduce 15 to 20% of the fertilization rate, we want to see if it will affect the yield of lettuce. So first of all, let's learn how to read the fertilizer label since it's a foundation to make the nutrient solution. So here is one example, the Jack's nutrients 5, 12, 26. So we always see some numbers in the fertilizer label, what it means. So 5 here represent nitrogen, and however for the 12 and 26, the phosphorus and potassium, they will always represent the oxide form of phosphorus and potassium. So in calculation, it's a little bit tricky, but I will introduce you some very useful tools. For example, we want to make 100 ppm nitrogen and nutrient solution. So how much fertilizer do I need to make such nutrient solutions? I want to introduce you this Omni calculator. It's used for water-soluble fertilizer calculator, and Alexis will share the link of this calculator. It's free, it's online. So you can change what label type. Normally it's NPK, like what we see on the label, but you can also change it to, for example, you want to calculate calcium, sulfur, or magnesium, other nutrients here. So you can input what you have. For example, we input 5, 12, 26 for this fertilizer, and our desired nitrogen rate is 100 ppm, so I input 100 ppm. So this will automatically give you calculate, for example, 1 gallon of the nutrient solution, we need to weigh 7.571 gram. So the calculator can always help you easily calculate how much fertilizer you need to weigh to make your desired concentration of nutrient solutions, especially in the hydroponic system. Another important part, as mentioned by Dr. Masamni, is EC and the pH in the nutrient solution. So what EC stands for, it's a measure, it's electrical conductivity. It's a measure of the amounts of dissolved salts in the solution. So sometimes if you have very high EC, it means we have too much salts in the solution, which will be harmful to our plant growth. And the pH is a measure of the acidity of or basicity of a solution. So it depends, like plants usually they prefer a little acidic or so here are our recommended EC range and pH range. EC we recommended 1.5, and for recommended pH range is 5.5 to 6, or sometimes 6.5. So that's because for the EC range, different nutrients, they have different solubility in the different pH, under different pH. Some nutrients, they might be not soluble to water in a very high pH. So that's why it's important we monitor the EC and the pH in your nutrient solution. Make sure these nutrients are available to our plants and also they are in a desired concentration range. If you want to make some advanced or a customized nutrient solution, here is one example. We use a dosatron, which the dilution factor is 100. Sorry. So we used one of the popular nutrient solution recipe is whole gland. It's a very classical nutrient solution recipe. So here we calculated how much salts you need to weigh or input into a 5-gallon volume to make a concentrated stock solution for the dosatron. So here are the weights of different salts we weighed, and it will make 100 ppm nitrogen rate in the diluted nutrient solution. I will give you detailed example later for the spinach study. However, there are many other factors or protocols you need to pay attention in a customized nutrient solution. As mentioned by Dr. Masabni, you can totally use Peter's Professional, the commercial uh, fertilizer in your nutrient solution, so you don't have to calculate all these and pay attention to many parts. For example, the calcium and sulfate, they can they can have some chemical reaction. So as a result, they will produce precipitation. So as for the customized nutrient solution, you have to make stock A and stock B, separate them to prevent they make the precipitation. So in the future, in the YouTube channel, The Vegetable Doctor, we will include more videos, training videos on how to making a customized nutrient solution. So subscribe to this channel and you will learn more about this. Next, I want to introduce our hydroponic spinach production in deep water culture, the DWC systems. So the spinach is a very popular vegetable. You can always find it in the grocery stores. It can appear as a baby spinach or a spinach in bunch. And they will also sell as canned spinach or frozen spinach. However, if you look at the spinach production in the United States, you will learn that California and Arizona, they contributed 94% of total spinach production. That's because in the United States, spinach production were mainly produced by the field production. So if we can grow spinach in a hydroponically in the controlled environment, so the spinach production won't be limited by the location or the climate, and our consumers can have easy access to locally grown fresh spinach. And also in the nutrition part, we learned that spinach is a nutritious vegetable, especially if you compare it with lettuce. Lettuce, as we all know, is the #1 hydroponically grown vegetable. So I made this table. You can compare for many nutrients. If you compare spinach versus lettuce, there are sometimes even 7 times compared to those in lettuce, and also for minerals, vitamins, protein, and dietary fiber. So spinach is a nutrient dense vegetable. You should include more of spinach into your diet, into your food. For example, if you're replacing lettuce with spinach in your sandwich, can give you a health boost. However, there are some difficulties if we want to grow spinach hydroponically. The first is cultivar. As I mentioned, since the field production is the main production method in the United States, the cultivar available, the spinach cultivar available on the market, they were mainly selected for the field production. So in our study, we want to select the spinach cultivars that are suitable for hydroponic production. And for example, they can yield more vertically instead of horizontally since we have limited space in the hydroponic system. And we also desire high shoot to root ratio because we are harvesting the shoot instead of the root on the spinach. Another problem we encounter or we are encountering for the spinach hydroponic production is nutrient solutions, which is more related to our topic today. So the problem is the nutrient solution recipes. They were mainly developed for spinach production. For example, the popular one, Hoagland Classic Hoagland nutrient solution recipe, they were developed decades ago and for lettuce production. So in our study, we want to learn if we enhance the potassium or magnesium in the nutrient solution, if we can improve the yield or the quality of spinach. For example, the potassium, they have the potentials as they can improve the root growth, they can enhance photosynthesis, and they can help retard disease. And also potassium can increase the yield, has the potential to increase the yield of spinach. For magnesium, it has a potential as constitute chlorophyll, so it's important for photosynthesis. As a result, benefits the yield, and it can activate specific enzyme systems, and it can boost the greenness of the leaves. As a result, we desire it can improve the quality and yield of spinach. So in this study, we included 10 different spinach cultivars, and the cultivar names were listed here. And we have 3 different nutrient solution recipes. We use the original Hoagland. We also enhanced the magnesium and potassium respectively in the Hoagland solution. This study experiment was conducted from in spring and before May last year in greenhouses in Texas A&M AgriLife's Dallas Center. So here is an example how I made these customized nutrient solutions. Still, we use dosatron. The dilution factor is 100. So these are the nutrient stock solutions. They are 100 times concentrated solution. If you want to use them in your hydroponic system, you need to dilute it to 100 times. For example, this is the original Hoagland, and this is our enhanced potassium nutrient solution recipe. So we added potassium sulfate here, and you can tell later the targeted potassium rate. And for magnesium, we increased the concentration or increased the amount of magnesium sulfate we added to the nutrient stock solution. And for the final or targeted nutrient concentrations, as we can learn here, for the potassium, enhanced potassium, we increase the potassium concentration from 133 ppm to 200 ppm. And for the enhanced magnesium, we increased from 20 ppm to 60 ppm. Here is our experiment setup. So we have 3 different DWC systems. In each bench, we have 3 benches. So for 3 tanks within each bench, we randomized the nutrient solution recipes, enhanced potassium, Hoagland, and enhanced magnesium. And within each tank, we have 30 holes for our transplants. So we randomized the different cultivars. Within each tank, we planted 3 plants of each cultivar within each tank. And here is after we transplanted the seedlings into the DWC system, we are measuring the pH, and we also measuring the EC as well. And these I use a vacuum to clean the debris on the raft. So here are the 10 different cultivars. In our study, you can tell the morphology are very different among the spinach cultivars. Some they have curved leaves, but some leaves are more flat, and some plants are more upright, and some are more rosette. And like this cultivar, the red kitten, they have the red stem, so they will be desired for the salad mix. And here are the results. So for the yield, which we are very interested parameter, we can tell that banjo and hammerhead, these two cultivars resulted the highest yield among the 10 cultivars. And for the plant height, we also learned hammerhead, mandolin, and reflect. These three cultivars, they resulted the highest plant height compared to other cultivars. And we also generated a parameter yield by horizontal area. So the horizontal area is here. We calculated the area of this rectangular. This is in an early stage of the plants, but if when we harvest, you can see it can represent the area that a plant occupied horizontally. So for this parameter, we found that hammerhead, this cultivar, resulted the highest yield by area. This is desired, as we mentioned, we desire our plants are growing vertically instead of horizontally because we have limited space in the hydroponic systems. We also tested the relative chlorophyll content. It can also reflect the greenish color of the leaves. For example, the lakeside, it has very high spread, and the space they have, the cultivar has low spread. You can tell the color difference between these two spinach leaves. So higher spread number represent darker green and lower represent lighter green. And shoot to root dry weight ratio also important since we are harvesting the shoot instead of the root. And we also learned that hammerhead result is the highest number on this parameter among the cultivars. You might be curious how fast the spinach can be grown in the hydroponic system. So this is 5 days after transplanting. This is 8 days after transplanting. 10 days, 11 days, and this is 13 days. So actually, spinach can be grown very fast in the hydroponic system. They can be very productive, and you can have a pretty high yield if you grow spinach hydroponically. And for another part, we are very interested is a nutrient solution recipe in this study. So for the enhanced potassium or magnesium, we didn't find it can affect the yield of spinach. However, the enhanced magnesium, they can increase the relative chlorophyll content. It makes the leaves look greener, darker green. However, the enhanced magnesium, they also decrease the plant height and maximum root length. And for the cultivar diversities, I summarized the results in this table. So we recommended hammerhead, this cultivar, for the spinach hydroponic production because it resulted the highest yield, the highest plant height, the highest shoot to root dry weight ratio, as well as the highest yield per horizontal area. As we mentioned, we desire a higher yield of the cultivar. We also desire it to grow vertically instead of horizontally, as well as a higher yield per horizontal area. Other cultivars, banjo can be recommended since it also resulted the highest yield. Next, I want to introduce another example of the sulfur nutrient deficiency. So these slides were made by Dr. Shuyang Zheng. She is an assistant professor in controlled environment agriculture, horticulture from the Department of Horticultural Science, Texas A&M. So in this study, they want to learn that the ratio of the nutrient elements that this fertilizer provide the optimal balance. So here is the same fertilizer we mentioned in previous slides, the JAX 12,4,16. And you may learn here that um, in this for this fertilizer is especially designed for hydroponics production, and they also recommended you can use pure water or RO water for this fertilizer. So for the 12,4,16, it represents 12% nitrogen and 4% P2O5 and 16% KO2, K2O, sorry. So if you convert it to the phosphorus and the potassium, here is the rate. For example, if plants are fed with 120 ppm nitrogen nutrient solution, they will receive the concentration of each micronutrients and micronutrients in these concentrations. And 100 ppm nitrogen rate is also used in this study. So we learned that it seems sulfur is missing in this fertilizer, but they still continued this study as recommended ratio of this fertilizer, and they got the results like this. So although they use 120 ppm nitrogen rate on this study, the plants didn't grow very well. Look at the basil, their leaves are turning yellow, and the lettuce, they didn't grow very well as well. So the problem, as we mentioned, it might be the missing sulfur because in this study they use the RO water. The RO water they have minimum or no sulfur in the water. However, this fertilizer they didn't include sulfur as well. So as a result, for this experiment, there is no sulfur in the nutrient solutions. So to prove if the sulfur deficiency resulted these symptoms, Dr. Zhang conducted another study. So they supplemented magnesium sulfate to these 3 tanks. And you can compare it, basil, compare it with this one. This is the original one. They didn't supplement the sulfur. And compare the lettuce, this one with this one, and also a red cultivar of the lettuce. These two, you can tell the yield is totally different, and also sometimes the color also changed. So for the basil, you can tell if there is no sulfur in the nutrient solution, the leaves are yellower, and also if you supplement the sulfur, the yield will double in the fresh rate. And for this red cultivar lettuce, you can tell without sulfur, the lettuce is in a very dark red color. However, if you supplement with sulfur, the lettuce grow much faster, and the red color is not as significant as sulfur deficiency. So for this lettuce cultivar, the fresh rate or the yield tripled after you supplement the sulfate. And for the other lettuce cultivar, you can tell without the sulfur, they grow very slow, and they didn't grow very well. They stopped in a very early stage. However, look at this. After you supplement only the magnesium sulfate to the fertilizer or to the nutrient solution, they have 7 times more fresh rate compared the sulfur deficiency. So this study showed you that each nutrient micronutrients, they are both essential to the plant growth. So for the Jack's fertilizer, um, they recommended use our water, but they don't have sulfur in it. However, if you use the Jack's fertilizer in tap water, the sulfur won't be a problem because in tap water, the sulfur concentration is high. And another example we want to introduce is a yield comparison of two fertilizer rates for lettuce grown in the nutrient film technique system. So our hypothesis is that 15 to 20% of the fertilizer rate reduction will not significantly decrease the yield of crops. This study was the slides were made by Ms. Sun and revised by me. So we included five different crops or five different cultivar or varieties of lettuce, including the Boynton, Burgundy, Hampton, Red Mist, and Jabodora. So for the germination rates of the five different varieties of lettuce, um, you can tell here is the germination rate. The Hampton, it seems they resulted very low germination rate compared to other cultivar or varieties. And we included two treatments to our different lettuce varieties. The first treatment is 113 ppm nitrogen rate. The EC of the nutrient solution is about 1.6. And another treatment too, we reduced the nitrogen level by 17% to 94 ppm nitrogen rate. And the EC is about 1.4. As we mentioned, our hypothesis, we want to test if we reduce the fertilizer by about 17%, will it affect our yield? If it will not affect our yield, that's desired because we can save the fertilizer input and also make our production more environmental friendly. So here is the EC, pH, and volume change along the study. You can tell the EC, the pH and volume, they are basically the same trend. However, for EC, initially the 94 ppm nitrogen is lower compared to the controlled one, the 113 ppm nitrogen. And after 20 days, 21 days, it's also lower. However, at the 14 days, the 94 ppm nitrogen, the EC is higher compared to the 113 ppm nitrogen. It might because the plant grows in, for example, in this stage, the plant grows faster in the 113 ppm nitrogen treatment, so they absorb more nutrients in the water, resulting the lower EC in this treatment. And these are the photos of the spinach in, sorry, the lettuce in our NFT system after the transplanting and a few days later. It's difficult to tell the difference among the two between the two treatments. And gradually, a few days later, and it's still difficult to tell the difference. And about harvest, you might tell some difference from this cultivar. See the 94 ppm nitrogen rate. It resulted maybe some plants are smaller compared to this one. And these are also the pictures between our before our just before our harvest. If you look at the side view picture of our single plants, the difference can be more significant. So especially for this cultivar like the Burgundy, you can learn that lower nitrogen rate they resulted smaller plants compared to the 113 ppm nitrogen. And Hampton is also significant, and John. And from the top views perspective, you can also learn that sometimes for different cultivars, they resulted smaller plants after you reduce the nitrogen rate in the nutrient solution. So here are the results of the yield. We harvested the fresh rate of the lettuce, and we can tell for Burgundy, Hampton, and Jabodora, these three cultivars, after you reduce the nitrogen rate by 17%, it resulted significantly lower yield of the lettuce. However, for the other two cultivars, the red mist and Boynton, the difference is not significant. So our conclusion is that different variety of lettuces, they respond to lower concentration of nutrient solution in NFT differently. It's cultivar dependent. So the red cultivar lettuce varieties are not as sensitive to lower fertilizer concentrations than green color varieties. We appreciate Dr. Shuyang Zhen and Ling Sun shared their slides with us. And we also, our work appreciated by the work finished by the team led by Dr. New and Dr. Masapni. Here are our team members. We appreciate Jun, Sanjun, Casey, Alexis for their contributions to this program.